I'm Andrew Main, and I wanted to answer the #1 question I get on Facebook and Twitter about writing, and that's how to get started. Now, it's kind of a mystery in many ways because you'll hear people say different things, there's a lot of different advice out there, and what we all want is just one clear voice telling you what to do. And I got news for you. I'm not it. But I can tell you what worked for me, but it is a constantly changing marketplace. Things that were true 10 years ago are certainly not true, and even things that happened in the last 2 years have changed radically as things evolve. I don't consider myself an expert, so take everything I say in that context, but I'll tell you kind of a general plan and what I think works best, and this is mainly what worked for me. Now, #1 is assume you have a good story. The cool thing about publishing now, if you're going to go online in the form of ebooks, is it doesn't have to be a big, huge novel, like 105,000 words, like Name of the Devil by me, available right now from HarperCollins. It can be shorter. It can be a novella, let's say 30,000 words. Some really great books that we've read are actually novellas, like Animal Farm, for example, or Fahrenheit 451. Length isn't as important as telling a good story, and people love really good stories. Sometimes they like ones to be shorter. In fact, I think things tend to be too big, and so novellas are an absolutely wonderful medium to tell your story in, and they work wonderfully on Amazon and other places that publish ebooks. So don't be afraid of writing something shorter. You don't have to write some big, huge manifesto. So assume that you have a story. Assume that you have something. Now, the next step is you want to make sure that it's good. I've written a lot of stuff that'll never see the light of day. Some of it may be good, some of it maybe not, and I think a lot of it isn't. I finish it, and then I say to myself, is it ready to go out there? I don't know. So what I do is I give it to somebody I trust. Often that's my buddy Justin Robert Young. I have him read it, get a couple other people to give me feedback, and if they're really enthusiastic, then I say, okay. If they're kind of like faint praise, then I take another look at it and consider reworking it. That's what you have to be mindful of, is it good? And sometimes your best friend may not be the right person to read it, because if they don't like vampire, werewolf, necromancer, romance novels, then they're not the right audience for it. They're not going to tell you if it's good or not. And some of the best-selling stuff isn't good to other people, like that genre, okay? Some of the most popular books are things that other people who aren't interested in it will think that it sucks. So it may not be right for your friends, but it might be right for an audience. So find somebody who reads that kind of stuff and get their opinion, because that's who you're selling to. You have to remember that. Sometimes people just want to tell you that it's great, and they're not going to warn you that you're about to face huge embarrassment, so you have to be careful. So first, see that it's good. Make sure that it's edited as well as you can have it edited. Because the problem is, and I've experienced this, is I'm horrible at grammar. And I have to have somebody else go through and proofread that. I'm really good at proofreading other people's stuff, not my own. So I need somebody else to go in and proofread it. I've paid people, English majors, journalism majors who are looking for a job, to sit down and go through it and to help me make it slightly more presentable. That's an important thing you want to do. If you put it out there and it is just atrocious to read, it's going to be very painful for your readers, and people will take it out on you. Now, don't panic. I've read professionally produced books, some of the biggest releases in the year, that were like millions of copies printed, and I find typos in them all the time. It happens, but you should do your best to try to make sure that is mitigated. So make sure it's good. Make sure it looks professional. You're going to want a cover too that looks good. There are a lot of services now that make it easier to have covers done for your books. So you can do that. You can buy stock art, but you want to make it look professional. You want to make it look as well as you can. If you just put it up there with a cheap cover, it could be the best book in the world, but people are going to dismiss it. So pay attention to that. Look at best-selling books. Look at how those covers look. Look how they're presented. And a pro tip here, don't put by your name. That is the first sign that you're looking at an amateur book. Now, that doesn't mean it's always an amateur book, but most books do not say by your name. You just have your name there, okay? Remember that. I think first books I put out, I put by and then my name. Then I learned a lesson. So we all make that mistake. Well, not all of us. I did. So now that you have your book that's supposed to be good because your friends told you it's good, you have a cover, you have it edited, you can now go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other programs, and you can upload them. You can do this to Apple iBooks. You can upload them into their system. Now, you need to put this in the proper format. There's EPUB. There's a couple different formats to do this, but you can look online to find out how to do it. It's not complicated. There are plenty of YouTube tutorials. It'll take you a couple hours to do it, but it's worth it. Once you've done that, it's up there, and then you can make it available for people to buy. Well, now your book's there and it's sitting there online. What happens next? You need to get people to read it. There are millions of books published every year, and nobody's going to care about your book unless you tell people about it. And that's where you need to start figuring out who's anybody you know that might want to read it. Send copies out there. Send PDF files. Don't worry about trying to sell it right now. Try to get readers because you want people talking about your book. That's the most important thing in the world. Some people put something online and they just think that, the cashier register, whatever, is going to start clinging, and it doesn't, because they don't make those noises anymore. But anyhow, that's not my point. My point is you've got to get people reading your stuff. And so find people who like the kind of thing you do, talk to your friends, talk about it on social media, make it available. You have to push. You really, really have to push. We live in an age when there's so many things competing for our attention. They're not going to care about your stupid little book. I was lucky. I have a podcast with the most awesome listeners in the world on Weird Things, the Weird Things podcast. And these were the perfect people to talk about my book, my first novella, The Grendel Shadow, and that worked well for me. So find your audience and promote your book and keep doing that. What you want, particularly on places like Amazon or BN or iBooks, whatever, is you want people to like your stuff and to give it positive reviews. After a certain point, if you get enough good reviews, those services start to promote your book to other people, and that's how you start to get attention outside of your existing audience. There are a lot of books, millions of books that just sit there with nothing happening because people think that, the magic book fairies are going to come along and wave their pixie dust and make it a success. It's not the way it works. You've got to bring it out there to people. Online publishing cuts the cost down so you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to publish a book, but it still doesn't solve the problem. You have to get people to read it. And step number 1, write a good book. Step number 2, tell people about it, okay? So finding your audience is absolutely critical. And you know what? It might not happen after your first book. It might not happen after your second book or your third book. And notice I'm talking about your second and third book. The reason is you keep writing. I wrote The Grendel Shadow, my first book, put it online, promoted it to my audience, had people read it, they recommended it to friends, and next thing you know, I started getting into some of the top 100 categories for different genres of science fiction. I thought that was great. That was awesome. I was making money as a writer. Within just a few weeks of publishing, I was making money as a writer. But you know what I did? I said, you know what? Let me write a novel. So I wrote a full-length novel next, and that was my book, Public Enemy Zero. And then I went out there and I pushed it because everybody who read the other book was ready to read another book by me, and that's a thing to think about. Online audiences are ready to consume a lot of stuff, so keep moving forward. But what's critical is keep improving your writing. Some authors have a little bit of success there, and then they put everything they've ever written online, or they just start writing faster than they can write something good, and I think they diminish their audience. You want to find that right pace, but just keep writing. Don't publish everything you write, but keep evolving and developing as a storyteller. So will this give you success? No, not everybody. Some people, yes. I was very lucky. Grendel Shadow did good. My next novel, Public Enemy Zero, that was the one that brought attention to me. And that's the goal, is to find more readers. So I went to a published author, became a published author because of ebooks. I self-published. Public Enemy Zero got read by a few different people. I got approached for movie rights. I got approached by agents. And then I went with Robert Gottlieb and Erica Silverman, the awesome people at Trident Media, and said, these guys would be perfect for me. So they approached me. They picked me up. And from there, I'd been able to develop different deals as far as film rights and television with the different properties I started on. They found me because I uploaded a book onto Amazon, onto iBooks, onto Nook, and made it available for other people. I took that first step, and then from there, people found me. Now, you don't have to be discovered to have a great success. There are authors who sell millions of ebooks without agents, without publishers, without any of that. It's a totally new era, and it's scary because we don't know where things are going. Even people who were publishing really successful a couple of years ago in ebooks have watched the market change because there's a hell of a lot more material out there and a heck of a lot more competition for it, so it's constantly evolving. What does this mean for you if you've never published? All it means is there's an opportunity out there that's constantly changing. Nobody knows what the future holds. So finish your book, make it good, make it look professional, and upload it. If your goal is to get a publisher, if that's all you want to do is you just want to write a book and see it on bookstore shelves, you write your book and then you find an agent, you find a publisher, find somebody who does submissions, and you can go that route. My route, what worked for me, I didn't know anybody in publishing, was through the self-publishing route. And from there, I went from being a self-published author to now having books with HarperCollins. And still self-publishing too, because sometimes I want to reach an audience directly. I hope this is helpful. If there's any other questions I can answer, please put it in the comment section here, and I'll do my best to answer it. And just as a reminder, Name of the Devil, available now. This is the continuing story of Jessica Blackwood, female FBI agent from a family of magicians on the hunt for some of the most sinister villains you can imagine. It looks like magic, but it's not. Available now. I'm Andrew Mayne. You can follow me at Andrew Mayne.